start in our lifetime? Like, to being an attractive person?
I think so.
It doesn't seem right if someone in the 50s was like, oh yeah, she's real hot.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a late 90s, early 2000s thing.
Oh, no, it has to be before that, no?
Yeah?
I kind of feel like definitely early 90s.
Okay.
For some reason, it feels 80s.
Well, maybe.
Although, I could feel it in the 70s.
I don't know.
Music was called hot in the 70s for sure.
Yeah, or like the
laid down
hot
some
new
tracks.
club. Maybe it evolved into meaning like physical beauty.
Who was the first person that was called hot?
I'm sure it wasn't documented.
Gloria Gaynor.
Probably. That sounds correct.
I don't know. It might be documented. There's a lot of times where you can find like the first use of certain things. If you could find like the first use of Merry Christmas, I'm sure we could find the first use of someone being called hot.
If you wanted it bad enough, if you searched hard enough, you could do it.
All right, I'm going to find it out. Okay. Or you listeners out there, let us know who was the first person that was ever called hot.
Was it you? Was it?
Maybe it's way older, and maybe it was like Plato. Man, that Plato was hot.
So hot?
Yeah. Cleopatra?
Jesus,
yeah. From what I've seen, he had like pretty ripped abs.
Yeah, from all of the photos I've seen of him.
From all the sculptures.
Yeah.
The guy was shredded.
Everybody was shredded in their sculpture, though.
I don't know how to segue out of that, but welcome, everyone, to another episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy Randawa, and with me is my co-host, the first woman to ever be called hot in this house, Samantha Hees.
Oh, hello. That's quite the title.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that title.
And we are members of the Alberta Podcast Network, which is locally grown and community supported. Today we are going to introduce a few things to you, give you some reviews. I have an album review. Sam has some book reviews. And you know what? For the first time ever, no movies today.
What?
For the first time ever, the big pick isn't going to be a movie.
What? But this is a movie podcast.
It was.
Books, music, and whatever you're introducing.
It's going to be a weird episode today because we're in a weird time. Well, everyone's in a weird time, but us specifically because we're moving, we're attempting to travel, we're trying to get married, and we're recording things way ahead of time, which is something we normally don't do. So we're just going for it.
We're just going hard. So hot.
So hot. Remember when Paris Hilton was like famous and all she would do is just say
hot.
Yeah, that was like a bit.
Yeah,
what
she
a
had like
time.
shirts. There was like, I'm pretty sure I said it at one point.
In like a Paris Hilton vein?
Yeah, because she was like the coolest.
Did you think she was the coolest?
Oh, when I was in high school, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What? This is very interesting to me because I was...
It was like a thing.
I don't know, maybe those couple of years between us makes me outside of it, or maybe because I'm some dude who didn't care about that kind of stuff. But what was the appeal of Paris Hilton?
She just seemed glamorous and fancy, and she had a little dog, and she dressed like we wanted to dress. Simple.
Real low pants.
Oh, God. The amount of
pants were so low then.
The amount of hip bone I showed at school. And I'm sure butt crack because you can't maneuver in those pants.
Yeah, I remember high school. Those were some low pants.
I'm going to talk about the show that I've been watching later, but it's from the time when this was all happening, when Paris Hilton was happening. And every so often they wear the super low jeans. And I'm like, how did those even stay on our bodies? Like they are around the biggest part of you, like your hips. And like, there's nothing for them to stay up on. But
that's where they are. They're just really, it's a real balancing act because they're right at your peak hip.
Yeah.
And if they slide just a little bit, they're down.
They're down.
But
and it's not like, because usually, like now jeans kind of sit above the
now
base.
Jeans, your jeans specifically are like right below the nipple is where you like to wear
are
your
not
jeans.
right below the nipple.
You like very
They're
high
just
pants.
Above the belly button.
No.
Yes.
Okay, maybe your jeans, but
I'm
your
wearing
pants
jeans right now.
Your pants in general are very high.
They're like just below my underboob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very high.
Yeah, I like it.
You like them right up to your chin, pretty
it's
much.
Secure. I feel secure in knowing that my pants aren't going anywhere.
So you couldn't wear a Christina Aguilera jean these days?
No, I have no want to either.
That's fair.
I'd have to lose about 75 pounds in order to make that work.
What? Why?
Because you can't have an inch of fat anywhere around your lower stomach, or else you look like you have like a muffin top.
No, I think that's just what you do then. You just have that. But luckily, we're in a time of super high pants again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get back on track. And the first thing we are going to do is hear from our first sponsor of the day, and that is someone I am very, very familiar with, the Edmonton Public School Board.
Get ready to take the guesswork out of choosing a school. Go to an Edmonton Public Schools virtual open house. Ask your questions to learn about their schools and programs, and find the one that feels right. All from the comfort of home. Find virtual event dates and learn how to make the most out of your online visit at openhouse.epsb.ca. Know before you go and feel confident and excited when you get there.
Okay, well, let's get into our first thing of the week, and that's going to be from me. And I know you were doing February as a romantic month, but I tend to do it as Black History Month.
Yes.
And I did kind of forget because we're not actually recording in February. But you know what? My stuff works great for it.
Oh, perfect.
So my first thing is the album called Africa from the band Amanaz. So this album came out in 1973, and I discovered it as I keep realizing the 70s were just the best decade for music everywhere, because, you know, I love that funk and soul from the US, I love the rock from England, although probably late 60s, early 70s. 70s enka from Japan I'm really into, and I discovered Zamrock, which is kind of a funk rock African fusion from Zambia.
Oh, Zamrock.
Yeah. So right now we are listening to the title track called Africa, and Amanaz might not be the best known of all the Zamrock artists, but I think they're my favorite because it feels a little darker than most of the genre. And to speak on how dark they are, they titled the album Africa because, and this is a quote, of how it was shared and how its inhabitants were butchered and enslaved, its resources stolen, and all of the atrocities slave drivers committed. So that's why they named it Africa, and those themes are present through the album a lot. So that's what I'm saying. It is a little bit of a darker album.
Seems upbeat.
But something which I think you would really like, because I really like it, the name Amanaz, it's an acronym, and it stands for Ask Me About Nice Artists in Zambia.
Oh, that's fun!
Isn't that so nice?
Oh, I like that. Well, you've been playing it around the house for like a week, and I think that it is kind of a fun, like, relaxed but upbeat sound.
And one of their better known songs, and I think my favorite from them, is called Kala My Friend.
Hello, Kala My Friend. Where do you think you're going to? And the road you've taken, it has no end. Kala My Friend, come back to me. Kala My Friend, 'cause I'm gonna miss you.
And this one they talk about because they're this friend could be anyone. It's like the everyman, and they're talking about the situation in Zambia at the time when the average citizen was really struggling. It's a pretty new nation in the 70s, and so many people would have had relatives in conflict-torn areas, and they were just struggling to find their next meal, and this song to this maybe fictitious, maybe real friend is kind of encapsulating all of that.
Oh, okay. I like that one. It's another one that's kind of like a nice and cooking dinner. It's like a nice kind of feel.
Yeah, I like it. Super laid back, but that one is kind of sad too when you really think about it. But if you want to just go upbeat and laid back, there is their song called Sunday Morning. like that one a lot because it feels like a Sunday morning. It just feels easy and relaxed. It feels like a sunny Sunday morning.
Oh, for sure. It's like we're just gonna like lay in bed or like lay on the couch and just have like a nice relaxing time.
Or if we were somewhere hot, like out in the sun on a patio.
Huh.
One day it'll be warm here.
Yes.
One day.
One day.
That one definitely sounds like it has a big Velvet Underground influence, but you wonder if like the Velvet Underground even got there, because we know of them now, of course, but Velvet Underground wasn't huge at the time, and this song was recorded like a year after that record came out, so even if it wasn't well known locally, that it got to Zambia within that same year and influenced them is probably unlikely. I feel it's more likely that they came from similar places. Velvet Underground and Amanaz had similar influences, and they're both kind of taking the same thing and going to a similar place with it, probably. And then they have some heavier stuff, like this song called The History of Man.
Let me tell you something new about the history of the man. He's got nothing to lose.
Like in the lyrics, it tells you, like, let me tell you something about the history of man. He's got nothing left to lose.
No, that's those are some pretty heavy lyrics for such an upbeat song.
It has those like really buzzy riffs and some like noodly solos. It reminds me of a lot of 1969 era Stooges. But again, you're like, are they influenced from the Stooges? Or it's probably that they all are a similar byproduct from recording very low budget, lo-fi, straightforward rock.
Right.
So they kind of had similar influences, and they're just making what they can in their garages, whether they're in London or Detroit or in Zambia.
That's pretty cool that this kind of music kind of perpetuates everywhere.
Yeah.
There's the same kind of feeling of like a struggling musician.
And I feel like growing up, I had this idea that music is so different in every country.
Right.
Like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to listen to music from Japan. It's going to be completely different. And then you listen to it and you're like, oh, yeah, no, funk was in Japan as well.
Yeah, funk
like,
is everywhere.
Funk is everywhere. That's what my new tattoo's going to say.
Funk is all around.
Funk is all around. That's pretty good. And let's do one more song. And the album ends on a much darker note with this song called Kale. This one's kind of like a Zambian-influenced blues song, and it's sung in the language Nyanja, I think it's called. I'm not sure, but I looked into it, and I also didn't realize how many different languages and ethnic groups there are in Zambia, but this song is quite dark as well, and it traces a journey from slavery to now Zambia's independence. Or I say now, and then.
Now.
So, all in all, I'm really into this album right now. I'm trying to find it. It's very hard to find a physical copy. You can find vinyls for like $600-700, but it had a really limited pressing in '73, and then again was re-released in '75. But so it's a little tricky to find. And hopefully I can get my hands on one of those. If not, I'll have to do with just Spotify. So look them up. The artist is called Amanaz. That's Amanaz. And their album is called Africa. And they only ever had the one album. You can look into Zamrock. There's a lot of real fun stuff out there. But if you like your music a little more sparse and stripped down and maybe a little darker, you should check out Africa by Amanaz.
That sounds very cool.
Well, Samantha, I hear you have listened to a couple of more books that you'd like to share with us.
Yes, you guys are going to be like so tired of books after.
Although I bet a lot of people are like, I want to read and or listen to whatever it is you just said.
I like last night we saw my family and my little brother and his partner, and I was able to recommend like 6 different books for someone just based on things that they like. So I love that.
Essentially made a living out of
you
recommending books.
have, but I like being able to be like, this is what I really enjoyed. It's a fun feeling.
That's kind of what the show's about, so makes sense.
Fun feelings.
Oh, I thought more recommending things.
Oh.
Because that's the premise of this show. We recommend movies to each other and then convince them that it's good.
Was that what we're doing?
That's what I've been doing. I don't know what you've been doing.
Okay.
You've been getting me to watch Twilight.
I'll take it under advisement. Okay, so I have fallen down the rabbit hole, which is a clue to the book that I read.
Alice's Journey Through the Looking Glass.
No. Different rabbit hole. Different rabbits.
Oh.
Or bunnies, if you will.
Watership Down.
Nope. So I read Down the Rabbit Hole, The Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny by Holly Madison, and her follow-up book, which is called The Vegas Diaries. And these came out in 2015 and 2016. And if you don't know, Holly Madison is former girlfriend number 1 of Hugh Hefner, who was in his 80s, and she was in her early 20s when she moved into the Playboy Mansion, and they've dated for 7 years. Nice. And this whole Hugh Hefner girlfriends and like their lives in the Playboy Mansion, I find that like really fascinating, because these are like young women, young beautiful women who choose to go and live with an 80-something-year-old man.
So I know very little about this.
Yeah, tell me what you know.
What it seems like to me is it's like any cult, but in this one they admit that it's all based on sex. Well, in most of them they're like, no, it's not about sex. It's about the afterlife. But yes, you do have to have sex. Yeah. In this one they kind of just say like, yeah, it's about the sex.
So the cult is the right word. Holly Madison wrote both of these books, and then also has done quite a few like open publicity things where she's really talked about how kind of mentally damaging, how like Hugh Hefner would use his girlfriends against each other to feed on their insecurities and drama and make them dependent on him so that they were scared to leave the mansion. He gave them money. He imposed really strict rules on them. So it was very cult-like, but he, like any cult leader, used his power and the prestige that you would get from being in that position of girlfriend to Hugh Hefner to keep them like compliant and to kind of force them to stay. And then he also really played up the fact that like this is all you'll ever be. Is a Playboy Bunny. So Holly Madison talks about living in the Playboy Mansion in her first book, Down the Rabbit Hole. And she talks about kind of the journey from becoming like the low girl on the totem pole to becoming girlfriend number 1 and then leaving, and how...
That's super gross that they're ranked.
Yes. Well, girlfriend number 1 sleeps in his bed and shares a room with him.
It kind of seems like you wouldn't want to be girlfriend number 1. It seems like 4 was probably a good spot.
Because you're
like kind of under the radar, but
you're not low on the totem pole. You're like mid-range.
How many people are on this
totem pole?
Sure.
So when Holly Madison moved into the Playboy Mansion, there was about 7 girlfriends.
Oh, wow.
And then there was like a big change up where a whole bunch of girls moved out of the mansion, and then he had 3. So he had Bridget Marquardt, Kendra Wilkinson, and Holly Madison, and they were kind of like a threesome. Everyone knew who they were. They became really famous because they had the show Girls Next Door. Have you heard of that?
No, like the whole Paris Hilton thing. It's not. I'm listening to Zambian music from the 70s,
like,
man.
Playboy.
I don't
reality
know.
Television.
I just don't know this world very much.
So this was one of the first reality shows that like got really popular when they first discovered that like reality TV was kind of a thing that people really enjoyed.
Okay. So we're talking like early 2000s?
This is very early 2000s. So like I was saying, there's a lot of low-rise jeans.
Right.
A lot of like tank tops with the lace sewn onto it. Do you know the
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the tank tops I'm talking about? There was a lot of like graphic t-shirts, baby tees.
Yeah, I remember the baby tee.
Baby tees with low-rise jeans.
The hip
There
huggers.
was like 12 inches of exposed skin, and somehow that was an appropriate outfit.
Yeah, I remember high school when everyone was about their baby tees and their hip huggers.
That was me in junior high.
Yeah.
So it's dated, but I did watch like about a season and a half of it after I read both of these books because I wanted to kind of see how the television show edited it to make it look a little bit more glamorous, right?
Right.
Because she talks about the show because she was on it. There was 3 seasons of it that she was on, and she talks about the show and how they really spun it to make it more glamorous and exciting. And she talks about points in the show and things that happened and what she was kind of going through privately as well. So it was really interesting to kind of see her doing all these things. And, you know, they go on a shopping spree in Las Vegas at the Playboy store. But at the same time, she's like not allowed to leave Hef's site or like talk to other men or do any publicity for herself other than for Playboy.
Do they just call him Hef?
Yeah, she calls him Hef the entire time.
Oh.
Or Puffin.
Oh.
Yeah, that was like her pet name for them.
Is it like a play, of course, because of Hefner, but is it like El Jefe, that kind of thing? Like the boss?
I don't know, but he's like seen with a captain's hat and a pipe. So I wonder if it's also like puffing on your pipe.
Oh.
I don't know. She never actually explains it. And there's a couple of things that she keeps very close to her chest, like pet names and like some of the more intimate details of their relationship because they were fully in a relationship, like boyfriend, girlfriend,
Right.
kind of long-term relationship. And
As much as you can be when you're being paid and kind of held against your will a little bit.
Yes. So she talks about the oppressive regime. There's a 9 p.m. curfew for these women.
Oh.
They aren't allowed to travel anywhere that would involve being overnight. So Holly Madison talks about how she and her friend tried to go to a friend's wedding in Mexico, but make it back before the 9 p.m. curfew.
Wow.
So flying out at like 4 a.m. or something and trying to get back in time, and how scared she was when their flight was delayed. It was like meltdown in the airport, scared. And she says how she kind of lost her identity to the point where she contemplated suicide. So she's talking about how like they really broke you down and like made you into this like Barbie doll.
This seems just like I'm more familiar with the world of cults than I am with
It's
magazine stuff, but this just seems like all of that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So in the Vegas Diaries, Holly Madison leaves the Playboy Mansion, and she does it in such a way that she basically like blows up her relationship with them.
Oh, that's fun. It's like quitting a job where you're like, fuck you.
It was huge. And then she wrote this book, and then she was like the enemy, basically. And he had new girlfriends. He eventually married one of them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they were together for 3 or 4 years before he died. But yeah, he finally settled down, and he was famously always saying like, I wish I could have done this with Holly, because Holly was like my true love.
Oh.
Which I'm sure made his wife feel really good.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like he's in the business of guarding people's emotional well-being. So.
No, and I think she was like 25. So in the Vegas Diaries, she moves to Las Vegas. She's always wanted to learn like dancing and singing, and she ends up using her celebrity from this reality TV show to get on Dancing with the Stars and become the headliner of Peep Show, which is like a burlesque show that was like headlining on the Strip.
Oh, it's probably just like that movie Burlesque. That's what she did.
Sure, yeah.
Although the movie Burlesque contained almost no burlesque.
It sounds like there was more burlesque in this.
Okay.
But it's like kind of fairy tale-ish, and it's based on Little Bo Peep and Little Red Riding Hood. I
don't know about that. I know it's a big thing, but I don't like, oh, what if we take like things for little girls and make it sexy?
Yeah.
I don't care for it.
I don't know. And so she kind of reinvents herself into this like Las Vegas showgirl, super famous Las Vegas showgirl. And she said that suddenly she was making money and she was able to support herself, which is something that Hugh Hefner, like, instilled constantly in her that like once you leave, nobody's going to care about you. You're going to be like a washed up, used up blonde girl who was more famous when you were with me, and now nobody will care about you. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly she's making millions of dollars every year, and she's getting to travel. She's getting to do all these things that she didn't get to do at the mansion, and she's like really living her life. So I think it's very cool to see her kind of grow in the second book and learn that she's not just a Playboy bunny. And she fights really hard to not have former girlfriend or playmate or centerfold in front of her name.
So the first book was called Down the Rabbit Hole?
Yes.
And that deals with her life living at the mansion?
At the mansion, yeah.
And the second one, The Vegas Diaries, deals with her life after that and her subsequent success.
Yeah, and
cool.
Trying to figure out her life, trying to figure out who she is, and kind of learning along the way. She dates Chris Angel.
Gross.
He sounds like a real dick.
He sounds like a real dick. Like, if you hear his voice, you're like, oh.
I would never.
He has, like, this real thick Jersey accent, which is quite funny because he has this, like super goth look. But then he sounds, it's
that sounds
funny.
Gross.
Yeah.
And then, so it's kind of uplifting. I found it really interesting from someone who, like, enjoys a good book about a cult. Mm-hmm. This is very cult-like. So there's an upcoming documentary called Secrets of Playboy, which I believe starts in a couple days. And I am really interested to watch it because it kind of like finishes out this whole big story. And it's got a lot of former girlfriends and playmates and people who were at the Playboy Mansion and kind of coerced into some of these like more seedy things.
Yeah, I have no interest in watching that reality show that you talked about. But if that same film crew said, like, oh, here's all the stuff we couldn't put into that show, and, like, here's what was actually going on, I'd be interested in that.
So it's being credited as, like, unreleased footage. Hugh Hefner famously took photos of every girl who went to a party or entered the house, and as well as had his entire house, like, wired for recording.
Right.
So, like, if you did something in a bedroom with someone, he probably has it on tape.
Weird.
And so there's all this footage. And now that he's no longer alive, they're opening up these archives of super creepy scrapbooks and photos and like basically blackmail material. And they're kind of releasing it, and these people are starting to come forward and talk about it. And Playboy has even come forward and said, like, we are not the same Playboy as Hugh Hefner's Playboy. We like stand behind survivors and people who are coming forward, and we are doing the best we can to listen and learn from their stories and to try and support the next like generation of people who grew up wanting to be in Playboy.
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah.
I know, again, nothing about that, and maybe this is just all lip service, but maybe that's a good first step at least.
But I think it's important that they're like at least trying.
Yeah. They're saying that it's a problem.
And they're allowing this documentary to come out, which I think is really interesting. Now that he's no longer at like holding the reins.
Dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah.
But like I think he kept a very tight like hold on all of this like secret information of how gross he is. So now that
as most rich gross people do.
Yeah. So now that he's dead, he all of this is coming out, and he's going to be exposed for how gross he really is. And I look forward to watching that documentary.
And hopefully it's not a surprise to anyone, because if you were like, oh yeah, there's this rich old man and he just has a harem in his mansion that isn't allowed to leave.
21-year-old blonde
You should
women.
already know, like, oh, that's gross.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take this documentary.
No.
It is weird that everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
Like, I know.
Yeah.
Because
Everyone
he was in
knows
like
who Hugh
movies and
Hefner
stuff.
is.
Everyone's like, oh yeah, Hugh Hefner. He lives in a big mansion with a bunch of people who like model nude.
Yeah.
That should have been more strange than it is.
And gross. People should be more upset about that.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting story, so you can check out Down the Rabbit Hole and The Vegas Diaries by Holly Madison.
And did you listen to them?
Yes, I listened to them.
How was the narration?
It was really good. She reads it herself. So there's some moments where she actually like you can hear her getting emotional.
Oh.
So you can tell a lot of the like things that are like actually hitting really close to home for her. But you can tell that she really wants to share her story. And so it was important for her to read this. So I like when biographies and autobiographies and stuff are read by the people they're about.
Yeah.
I think that adds a level of like authenticity. So our second ad sponsor of the episode is Boys and Girls Clubs and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Edmonton and area, which is also called BGC Bigs. And did you know that you have a superpower? No, we're not talking about flying or reading minds, although those would be pretty cool to have. You have the incredible ability to help young people see their own superpowers. Consider sharing your time with a young person. Over the last year, BGC Bigs heard from young people that having a mentor means they are less likely to have anxiety, feel isolated, or struggle with their mental health. There are over 600 plus young people waiting for a mentor in their lives today. Explore how you can get involved. Watch our community change one life at a time. There's currently a need for mentors in the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or Big Siblings program in school for our Youth in Care program and for the new PRISM programs. There is also a need for virtual tutors who can support young people as they transition back to school and are dealing with the learning loss over the past 2 years. Join BGC Bigs for a virtual coffee or apply now at bgcbigs.ca or Google BGC Bigs Edmonton, your priority, their future. So, Indy, it's time. What are we going to be watching?
Oh, we're not.
What?
We're not watching.
What are we doing?
We're listening.
To?
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley! Okay, so that seems appropriate.
So the reason we're doing this is we are not going to be recording for a while, but we will have time to listen to all sorts of music. And one of the things we listen to a lot if we're going somewhere warm, I love Bob Marley. And actually, before we get into anything and how this is going to work as a full episode, Samantha, you've come to know Bob Marley for sure in the last few years.
Yes.
Before you met me, did you have any thoughts on him or know his music?
I knew of him. I knew some of his music just because, like, it's around
Yes.
and it's kind of popular. There's some songs that kind of come up. But I didn't ever listen to, like, his full discography
Right.
without someone else playing it, right? Like,
Yeah, you get those few, like the 4 or 5 songs that
Yeah.
everybody hears.
like I know Jammin'.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows Jammin'. But yes, so we've been lucky to be able to go on a few hot vacations in our 5 years together. And so
when we were allowed to go places.
when we were allowed to go places. So I definitely know Bob Marley from that because you love to just like
It's good vacation music.
listen to the ocean and listen to Bob Marley and just like relax on the deck with a drink.
Yeah. So how this is going to work is we are going to just listen to some of his stuff. And next week, I'll kind of just give you almost like a presentation on the life
Will there be a
of Bob
PowerPoint?
Marley. I can make a PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make you a PowerPoint. I'll make you know what? For everyone out there, I will make you a PowerPoint
It'll
that
be
you
in the
can
show notes for
follow
next week.
along to.
Oh, yes.
It'll be a Google Slides because then
Okay.
everyone can access
Yes.
it. I'll make you a Google many slides,
Some slides.
and you can follow along if you would like.
Excellent.
As I talk.
I don't know why that makes me so excited, but like I love an interactive guide.
Sure. Yeah, and then I'll walk you through his life. Of course, we'll stop and hear a little bit of music in the next
Nice.
episode, and we'll get some thoughts from you because you'll be hearing probably stuff of his that you have never heard. Of course, we'll talk about everything of his, but I think we'll probably focus on 1973 right through the end of his life because he had the Wailing Wailers, which we'll get into, but we probably won't be doing so much of his like early ska type stuff. It'll be more in the roots rock or reggae.
Nice. Real relaxing beach stuff.
Yes. And if anyone's not familiar with the work of Bob Marley, he was a very, I would say, prolific musician. And he was born in 1945 and passed away in 1981. And in that time, he did some amazing work for the visibility of Jamaica and Jamaicans. He's, I would say, the most famous Jamaican ever, and it's going to be very hard to top him. Like, I still don't think Usain Bolt being the fastest man ever, I don't think he's more well-known than
I feel
Bob
like
Marley.
people know Usain Bolt and not necessarily where he's from.
Oh, maybe.
I feel
While
like
Bob Marley is
he is
Jamaica
Jamaica,
to a lot
yeah.
of people. Very true. And he also advocated for Pan-Africanism, which is something that I've kind of been into more with a lot of this music that I've been listening to. And a lot of his best music was through the 70s as well, which, again, best decade for music ever. But we'll talk about his music and also his career, not just musically, but he did a lot of amazing things. And there was an assassination attempt on him. Do you know about that?
No.
He was shot and survived, and because he was he wasn't hugely politically active by today's standards, but then he was kind of forced into it because this was a time when there was just a lot of turmoil in Jamaica, and the two parties, like the political parties, were essentially taking up arms against each other.
Oh, wow.
And he was kind of caught in the middle, and all he ever did was just try to preach peace above all. And one of the reasons I really want to talk about him is when I say something about Bob Marley, people are like, oh yeah, Bob Marley. And it's like, what does that mean? And they're like, you know. And I was like, no, I don't know. Like, actually, what does it mean? And I think a lot of the time it's the association with cannabis use. And he did, of course, use it and wanted legalization everywhere. But like I often have said on this podcast, is like as a part of Rastafari religion, it is treated as a sacrament and it is very important to them. Also, even if you're not religious, it's still a lot of fun. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of overshadows this great humanitarian who did so much to attempt to unite the world. Like he wasn't just going very locally. He acted very locally and globally, and I think his influence is very underrated today. And I do presentations in senior centers with the library, or at least I used to. And one time I said, I'm going to talk about Bob Marley. And everyone's like, oh, I don't know if you should be doing that to seniors. They might not be like cool with that. Why?
Yeah.
And I think there's association that anyone who uses cannabis is bad. And I kind of think it might be a little bit of racism in there sometimes.
Probably.
That like someone who has dreadlocks is like, they're up to
there's
no good,
definitely
right?
some like association.
But either way, he was a great man, and I want to talk about him. So we are going to listen to some of his music over the next while. I'm not sure when we'll be recording the next episode. It might be weeks from now.
Yes.
But we will, and I'll create a slideshow for everyone to follow along with.
Why am I so excited?
And one video I know I want to put in it. I'm not going to give away anything else after this. I'll stop talking. But there was this one concert that he gave. There's this other one where he got shot the day of, and then he left the hospital because he was giving a concert for freedom and unity, and he still went with a bullet in him. Actually, I won't even talk about anything else, but that's who he was.
That's amazing.
So if you're not familiar and you just think it's going to be like, it'll be some nice music, it's also going to be a pretty great story, I think.
A little heavy, a little fun.
It's going to be all over.
A little exciting.
Yeah, he lived a life. So join us here next week for you, where we will talk about the life and music of Bob Marley. And you, of course, listen to anything. His album Legend is the most well-known one, but it is like a best of album.
Okay.
Really, they're all good. I think from 73 to... when was that one? Like 79? I think those are the best few. But even if you just have a best of, great. Listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's best ofs for a reason. A lot of them are great.
It's very true.
Legend is an amazing album.
And like, it's always nice to have a song that you know going into it, and then just like exploring further after you remember that you like this and you get used to it.
Yeah.
It's good to have a gateway in.
Like Catch a Fire came out in 73. That was kind of their debut, which was amazing. But I think Burnin'... Rastaman Vibration is very good as well. They're all good.
Okay,
good
listen
albums.
to anything.
Go listen to some Bob Marley, and we will have suggestions on our favorite ones next week.
Excellent.
And we'll get a slideshow.
Love a good slideshow. Okay, we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.